Minister, let's start the conversation surrounding some comments made by Mr. Lincoln Lewis in the Village Voice News a few days ago. Firstly, there were some accusations made by Mr. Lewis to you and other Afro-Guyanese within the government, saying basically that these Afro-Guyanese leaders are taking part in the oppression of other Afro-Guyanese. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the thing is, first let me start off. The fact that Mr. Lewis attempted to attack me personally, I want to preface everything I will say, that I will attack him personally. I have tried over the last month or so to stay far from the matter regarding this co-op society in Linden, because there are two issues there. One, the administration of a co-op society, that is the purview of the Chief Co-op Development Officer. Secondly, 2 weeks ago, some labor relations issues, as they said, arise, and that is the purview of the Chief Labor Officer. They have tried to make it a political matter, and I never want to be drawn into that because I know what the matters are. So that's the first point. But here you have Lincoln Lewis, who is attempting to again take over his cabal, a co-op society. A co-op society that was mismanaged, and I'll get to that in a moment, but Lincoln Lewis, they present themselves and purport to represent black people. Three comments I will make on Lincoln Lewis' character. A man who has no credibility, a man who has no integrity, but continues to present himself like he is a moral barometer of this society. Some years ago, Mr. Lewis was accused by members of his own union of selling them out for a car given by the employer who he was negotiating on their behalf. So that's the first point. Second issue, Mr. Lewis, he likes to write. He must tell the Guyanese people, because he always talk about how important his representation of Guyanese people, or with people of African descent and Afro-Guyanese, how it is. Follow Lincoln Lewis and every organization he's involved in. It's not accountable nor transparent. The union he run is General Secretary of. They have not called a meeting, I don't know, in decades. So the people, every week or month, they take the people's dues, and there's no representation for them. The people have no forum where they could go and air their concern about how their union is being run, because it has been taken over by Mr. Lincoln Lewis over the period. No accountability, no financial statement, no auditing. That's how they run the place. And I would say this, because they like to talk about this issue about slavery and who's. If you want to speak to oppression, there can be no greater oppression than what Lincoln Lewis is doing to members of the union. Now here you take their money and you give them no representation, and you think they have no authority or role to ask you about how you're spending their money. That's oppression. That's slavery, where people slavishly, their money go to you, and you are not responsible to them. So that's the other point. As regards this union, GTUC, the TUC rather, same issue. No accountability, no transparency. I would tell the public, since I'm minister here, 3 years, we have money that we send back and we'll be sending back to the consolidated fund. Monies that is made available via the budget to give to TUC. All we ask Lincoln Lewis for and his cabal, the financial statement of the expenditure the year before. And so, refusing to do that, but then would accuse the government of discrimination against black people. So, is this thought where, because you're Afro-Guyanese, you should have this latitude to utilize government funds without accounting, and then Afro-Guyanese who are in the government, we should go along with this kind of incest, without calling it out. So the TUC, the same people, is denying funds the government made available to help the trade unions by not submitting a financial statement. So we have that money. 2020, it has to go back. 2021, it has to go back. This year, again, we ask for a financial statement so that we can know how the government money is spent. That is not forthcoming. And therefore, again, money that could have been utilized. So you care so much about black people. This money to TUC, if he was transparent and accountable, might have been even gone to helping to teach and train young black people, as he says, he's so much concerned about. Crucial Labour College, the same issue. The issue you follow it historically is failure to present a financial statement, failure to be audited. And therefore you have hundreds of black children who will not be able to enjoy Crucial Labour College because Lincoln Lewis has over the years refused to honor a simple obligation the government asks for. Give us a financial statement how you spend the money we give to you, the subvention. So if you look at him holistically over the years, nothing that he's involved in is transparent or accountable, none. And therefore he has no moral authority to speak about these matters. He has no moral authority to purport to present himself as champion of Afro-Guyanese. Every day, the evidence is there. We in the government, whether we are Afro-Guyanese or Indo-Guyanese or whichever type of Guyanese, we do more for Afro-Guyanese than Lincoln Lewis and all the talkers they will ever do in their life. And that is the reality of the situation. At the Ministry of Labor, 2 years we've trained 7,500 persons. I would say that 60% of those persons are Afro-Guyanese, who today have a skill that they didn't have when Lincoln Lewis government was in power. So the point is, we have to bring to an end, and that's the reason why I do this. This conversation where they purport themselves like they're our saviors, like they speak in our behalf. The Lincoln Lewises of this world don't speak for Hamilton. And I know thousands and tens of thousands of Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, he don't speak for them. And so we have to call them out every time they speak, that they have no authority to suggest that they're speaking on our behalf. And it's a stupidity and idiocy to suggest that Joe Hamilton and Mark Phillips and Oonage Waldron, somehow we are in government and we are colluding to oppress our cousins, our friends, our schoolmates, because that is what it is. All the people that are Afro-Guyanese, they have some relationship with us, individually and collectively. So we're in government, to oppress our children, our family, our relatives, our neighbors, our schoolmates, our people who grew up with us in the country. So it's idiotic conversation, but it can become potent if you don't challenge it. And they just glibly say that. There's no evidence. So it takes this issue here, where we have an unaccountable bunch of people who are Afro-Guyanese, who failed in 10 years to present financial statement to Afro-Guyanese, because this credit co-op society, all the people there are Afro-Guyanese. So Lincoln Lewis had interest in those Afro-Guyanese. Who is bosom buddy Sampson, failed in 10 years to even call a meeting to account to them, failed in 10 years to even pay dividends to them, failed in 10 years to even an audit of this co-op society. And so he didn't see that was oppression of Afro-Guyanese. But that is the duplicity of these guys. And they expect that every one of us who are Afro-Guyanese, we must go along with this foolishness. But we will challenge it, and we'll continue to challenge it. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I did the same thing with other people who spoke in these terms, Alexander and Mr. Cummins. And every time they speak, seeking to present this fig leaf about discrimination with no evidence, we will challenge them on it. And therefore I say, Mr. Lincoln Lewis has no moral authority, no integrity to speak on what is right and what is wrong. You know, yesterday we issued a press release dealing with the labor relations matter. And that is out there. So the chief labor officer is attending to that matter. And you know, he pointed out that Lewis is a liar. Lewis suggests in his Village Voice post that there was no interaction and there was no intervention by the chief labor officer. And that's a blatant lie. I mean, you could just do that, believing that this people will believe it when the evidence is there. That the chief labor officer engaged the management of this place, engaged the union, responded to the letters that he sent. And brazenly, he would lie to say that the Ministry of Labor, we have neglected to intervene. The other important point, let me make it, and I hope the people who work at this co-op society understand this. You are engaged in an illegal strike. Strike, before it reached there, it got several procedures. The chief labor officer publicized those yesterday. First thing, so let me say this to the people who work, the workers who are being used as tools by Lincoln Lewis and Sampson to seek to reclaim the co-op society. You will not be successful. So they continue to use the people. And further, the people who are being used by them, they must know you will not be paid for the time you were out. You will not be paid because the strike is illegal. It has no legitimacy. It is where Lincoln Lewis is utilizing these people basically to snatch back the co-op society that was a cash cow for he and his cabal and Sampson them over the years. All of these people we're discussing here are Afro-Guyanese. All the people. This guy is the champion of Afro-Guyanese representation. Why you didn't go and represent them? In 10 years that Sampson, they're running the place, and the people getting no dividends from their investment in this co-op society.
Minister, permit me to ask you too, in relation to the co-op society there in Linden. So the report of discrimination is also being related to some idea that the functioning of the co-op society is being stymied. There is no profit that is coming from the co-op society. Is there any truth in that statement?
Again, Mr. Lewis is a blatant liar. In 6 months, the IMC has rescued the co-op society from nearly a bankruptcy to profitability. The evidence is there. They have rescued this place that is bosom body Sampson was running for a decade at least. Ran it into bankruptcy. And that is the reason why I have no apologies to make to anyone of our intervention. This is a utility company. And no way this minister and the government of Guyana will allow these corrupt set of people to run this place down and plunge WISMA into darkness. That is where it was going, because they could not pay their debts. As I speak to you, there's a judgment against the Co-op Society for the $11 million that they could not honor. Plus they could not honor the rates and taxes through the Linden Town Council. They could not honor so many things so the place was about bankrupt. And what the IMC it has done in 6 is to save it from bankruptcy. And I have no apologies to make to the Lincoln Lewises of this world, because the same people, these same people who have no morality and integrity, they would have said, if the place was plunged into darkness via bankruptcy, where was the government, where was the minister? We would have gotten blamed for this thing here. So I am ensuring that no one will blame us for plunging WISMA into darkness. The other important thing, this is a utility, you know, the strike is double time illegal. One, striking without intervention of the Labor Department. That's the first one. And secondly, there's a utility company, and this is so serious as regards utility company. Let me read what the law says about it. It says, an employer shall not declare to take part in a lockout, and a worker shall not take part in a strike in connection with any trade dispute unless the dispute has been reported to the minister under Section 3 by a person or an organization other than an organization such as mentioned in subsection 4 of the section. And it went on to say, 1 month has to elapse since the date of a report. The day they are reporting is the same day they're striking. Second, it talks about that the dispute has not during that time been referred by the minister for settlement in accordance with the section. So they have moved beyond all of those things. And the same day they are querying, the same day they're striking. And therefore that's why nobody will be paid. No one will be paid. The other important issue that people must note, and I'll share this with you, and let them see whether Lincoln Lewis is concerned about labor relations matter, or whether he is concerned about other things. Lincoln Lewis, when he wrote the chief labor officer in a message, you know, one of the things, he was making two demands. One, he says that the chief co-op development officer must remove a member of the IMC. You understand that? Is that a labor relations matter? He is seeking to usurp the functions and authority of the chief labor officer, who only person with the authority to disband a management committee of a co-op society, credit union, or a friendly society, and establish IMC to run the business. He's telling her, I want this man to be removed. First point. Second point, he says also that there must be a commission of inquiry of the functions of the management committee. First thing is, who will do that? That's the first point. Who will do that? Second point is, again, trying to usurp the authority of the chief co-op development officer, the only person who has that authority to determine the ins and outs of our interim management committee must be run is the chief co-op development officer, not even the minister. But here, this guy purports to represent labor relations matter, intervening as the union representing the workers, as he said. But he's attempting to dictate to the chief labor officer that he must advise the chief co-op development officer. These are terms of resumption. The second letter, when it came, that was expunged. So there's a recognition by him that he was seeking to usurp authority that he don't have. So if you look, the first set of demands was 7. In his new letter, it's 5, dealing specifically with labor relations. But the thing is, though, is this, look, that Mr. Lewis has not represented the workers well. He has deceived them. And so the workers, their salary and wages are in jeopardy, first one. their employment is in jeopardy because they walk off the work. They walk off the work. Thirdly, Mr. Lewis encouraged the workers to lock this facility and lock out the IMC. You understand? This property don't belong to the workers, but they, utilizing their support from Lewis, they lock out 2 days or something like that. Police had to intervene in this matter, right? To ensure that the people get access back to this place. The other issue is the employees that he represents, they went ahead and raised the rates for electrical charges without sanction by the IMC. And then part of their agitation and seeking to influence people is to say that the IMC raised the rates. You understand that? You're looking at the collusion, and you're looking at the deceit and deviousness of Lewis and his type. So their friends raised the rates without informing, or even for that matter not inform. They have to have a resolution coming from the IMC meeting to do any such thing. They did not do that. But when people queried the customers, they are blaming the IMC so that Lewis, they can say, this is what these people who Hamilton has appointed to run your affair, this is what they have done. The thing is, and I've said it to Lyndon, and I've said it to the IMC to tell people, the rates are still the same. The rates for electricity charges in Wisma remain the same. People must not pay more than what they were paying. So that is the issue. So no, Lewis, they cannot run with that. But the workers must know this, though. And this is what Mr. Lewis should be telling the people. He's exposing the workers and his union to serious disciplinary consequences as a result of the illegal action, such as deduction of wages and other forms, including the termination of the services of the workers, because they walk off the work. Importantly and instructively, the Public Utilities Undertaking and Public Health Services Arbitration Act, Essential Services Arbitration Act 5401, obligates that they report the dispute to the minister, Section 12, as I quoted earlier, and Section 19 of the SECT Act. And you know, it went on to say this: every person who contravenes or fails to comply with Section 12 commits an offense and is liable to summary conviction. So Mr. Lewis has not said that to these people. I'm informing the people who work at the place there that they have exposed themselves by being utilized by Mr. Lewis, and they have committed a criminal act. Further, the section went on to say, a fine not exceeding $30,000 and imprisonment for 2 months. That is a person who working in a utility or health facility and just walk off the job. You cannot do that. And you know, earlier this year, we had the issues with people working in health services, nurses, who attempted to do the same thing, right, at the instance of their union, right? So Mr. Lewis must tell the people that. It went on to say, if the offense is a continuing one, a further fine not exceeding $1,000 for every day or part of the day during which the offense is committed. So these people are already the workers, and I hope they listen to me. I hope you send it to Lyndon so they could understand. There are two issues. One, wages and salaries and their employment is in jeopardy. And two, they have committed an offense by being an employee of a utility company who walk off and try to shut it down. The law is clear on this matter. And so I just thought I speak to this matter from a different angle to the Chief Labor Officer. Yesterday he issued a press release, that is the ministry, and establish the truth of the matter as regard the labor relations issue. And we have not shied away from intervening. What Lewis is attempting to have us do is to legalize an illegal strike. That's what he's attempting to do. By, is terms of resumption. If I may share it with the public, and I'll give you this thing. There shall be no victimization by any party. You walk off the job. And that is just that. No consequences. Secondly, he said, there shall be no loss of service and benefits. You walk off the job for 3 months. For 3 weeks, rather. 3 weeks, you walk off this job. No concern and care. Again, I want to throw this black people, Afro-Guyanese argument in the dustbin. No concern and care that 95% of the people who would be affected in Wisma Shore are people who are Afro-Guyanese. By encouraging these people to walk off and refuse to give service to the people. So this champion of black people, he wasn't thinking about those people, tens of thousands of people of Wisma Shore. People, children who got to study. People, children who got to put on their computer to do research. He wasn't thinking about the black businesses over there. And the single mother who got a couple parcels of chicken in a fridge. He wasn't thinking about those. And that is the story with these guys. All of these people in the rubric of this conversation are people of African descent. And this so-called champion of black people never thought about that. First, never thought that he's exposing black people to put themselves in a position where they can be fined, where they can lose their job. That is the workers. Never thought about if the service collapse at the Co-op Society, tens of thousands of people of African descent, Afro-Guyanese, would have suffered immeasurable damage in Wisma by not having electricity. This champion. Then he went on to say, the parties agreed to meet after resumption and discuss the filling of all vacancies. Now imagine that. Totally outside his remit. A union leader has nothing to do with the internal functioning of a company or of how an employer will run his facility. He is telling us now, not the personnel officer. Lincoln Lewis now usurped the authority. He usurped the authority of this chief labor officer. He went on attempted to usurp the authority of the chief co-op development officer. Now, he is usurping the authority of the personnel department at this entity by saying, okay, let us discuss the filling of vacancies. So apparently he will be involved in vetting people who must work at the entity. You see the stupidity and the arrogance of these guys. And then he went on to say, the company agrees to enter into negotiation for a new collective labor agreement after full resumption. Right? New collective labor agreement. You know what the thing is? Just 6 months ago, when his buddy Samson was there, he didn't write him to say, I need a new collective labor agreement. You see the guys? You see the hypocrisy with these guys? Suddenly, he know that there should be a new collective labor agreement. Follow me? Then he went on and said, there shall be resumption of work within 48 hours after the signing of an agreement. The point is this. All of this is attempting to have us legitimize and make legal what is illegal. So that's the issue. And we will not make legal what is illegal. The strike is illegal. It has no legitimacy. The people have walked off the job. And therefore the IMC, they will look at these matters. And Mr. Lewis must know, I think he knows me enough, And Hamilton cannot be bullied, will not be bullied. I've dealt in my years of service with all the bullies like Lincoln Lewis. I just thought I'd make the point that African people, Afro-Guyanese, understand that these guys, they don't have your interest at heart. Everything they do is self-serving. They would not put black people at risk if they care about them. And everything Lincoln Lewis did and is doing, and all his cabal members regarding this co-op society, is putting life of black people at risk, whether the employees or the people who live at Wismashu. So those are the issues, those are the facts. And every time the guys like the Lincoln Lewises and the Alexanders and them, they speak, I will speak. And my colleagues, they will speak, so that people understand that we are fearless in challenging them on these matters when they rehash the conversation about discrimination and when they attempt to instigate people that something wrong is happening to them. And therefore, I thought I, address this issue. And I will hope that the people of Linden pay careful attention. I will hope the employees, they pay careful attention. What I can say to you is that before the week is done, I know the IMC will be reaching the Chief Co-op Development Officer. I know the Chief Labor Officer will be engaged with the management there. And let me say this finally. Look, this Lewis is so much a liar. The reality is the IMC life came to an end, of which he knew. And therefore, either the extension of their life or a new IMC at the common place at the 1st of September, the 1st of October. So all of that was playing out there. So there was no IMC to negotiate with until a new IMC that now has a new chairman and some new members was installed. He's aware of that. But yet, he goes out there and peddles misinformation, suggesting discrimination of the Chief Labor Officer dealing with black people, when he's the one who is utilizing black people for his own selfish ends and gains. And all this is about not the concern of the workers, not the concern of the members of the co-op, not the concern of the people in Linden. They want somehow to take back possession of the co-op society. There's everything that's happening here. That is what it is. But that will not happen. That will not be permitted. The IMC role is to ensure that they bring the co-op society to a place whereby they can call an annual general meeting where they will elect their new management committee. Their role is to ensure that you have audits right up to 2021. So there are specific things they have to do. And there will not be a meeting unless these things happen, because that's what the law says. The register must be updated so that we are clear who are the members, not just members, who are the financial members. Because when the day comes and the time comes for elections, only financial members can be at the meeting to elect people. So this is a process. The IMC, new IMC life is for 6 months, and we are hoping that all of these things will happen, and so that the Chief Co-op Development Officer can have a meeting convened for the people to elect their management committee. So that is where this matter is at, and I'm grateful, I'm thankful that you have had me this morning to speak to this matter.
Thank you so much, Pastor.